Welcome to Taiwan Talk on ICRT. I'm Ryan Drillsma. This week, we're continuing our series on the coronavirus pandemic, and I speak to Katherine Lu, an American-raised Taiwanese national whose life was flipped upside down when she made the decision to travel back to Taiwan due to the pandemic.
So I actually was born in Taiwan, but was raised for most of my life in the States, and would come to Taiwan maybe once a year in the recent years, but not that I never really spent that much time in Taiwan.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm very culturally Taiwanese, Chinese, just because I'm first generation in the United States.
So if you don't mind me asking, what's your reason for being back in Taiwan now, and when did you come back?
So I think this will be my longest time in Taiwan since being here when I was, 3 or 4 years old. I did go to pre-K in Taiwan, but obviously have no recent memory of it. But so the reason for me being here is, I think there's a medley of reasons, but the main one is that my partner is French, and after we met before COVID.
Yeah.
In around January, and then after COVID, everyone kind of lost their jobs. So he was working as an architect, but because of COVID, his firm let go of everyone who was working there for less than a year. So he suddenly had to go back by April 30th. So then I was scrambling to find how we could get back together, and because him being in the United States was impossible, and I can't go to Europe. It's just impossible as well. So I was even looking into grad school in Germany, but that didn't work out. And then I said, this is kind of crazy, but what if we all just moved to Taiwan? So then, I was like, I could actually go to Taiwan anytime because I am national, and then you would have to apply for the PVP. So that worked out, and then he got the PVP around November. We flew to Taiwan, beginning November, quarantined for 2 weeks. Now we'll both be here for, at least a year, possibly more. It was not in the plan. It was kind of decided upon, in less than a month, just in terms of when we made a decision, finding out the answer or the possible answer, and actually committing to it.
So rather than just the visa processes, was it COVID-19 that impacted your decision to both move to Taiwan together?
Yes. I mean, if it weren't for COVID, we would still probably both be in California doing, normal everyday things. But because of COVID, it just kind of forced us to make this decision that I've never even foresaw in my future until October last year.
Right. Okay. So has COVID impacted your career and if you don't mind me asking, what does your partner do now in Taiwan?
Oh, yes. So he is still looking to be an architect, but just given the nature that we're in a different country, he figured it's best to learn Mandarin first. So we're both taking courses at MTC in Suda, and I'm taking the one for people who can speak and listen but can't read or write, and he's starting from scratch.
So you've had experience living in the United States during the pandemic where it's affected thousands of people's lives there. How has your life been different since you've moved to Taiwan?
Oh, COVID has impacted millions of lives in the United States.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm one of them, but so much more on a limited effect. So first of all, it affected my relationship and caused me to move to Taiwan. And then second of all, I also lost my job because of COVID.
Right.
I work as a UX UI designer, designing websites and apps. And, just because of COVID, people or companies really evaluate where their money should go to. So I lost my job because of it, but thankfully I'm working again now. And I mean, life in Taiwan is, I always feel like I am just very tired every day, oddly enough, because I was, basically stayed at home from mid-March, March 15, when Los Angeles announced the stay-at-home orders.
Yeah.
I basically stayed at home from, March 15 to November 7th, November 8th, when my flight was in Taiwan. So I'm very used to the mindset of just staying at home, hunker down, don't leave the house. And then suddenly I'm in Taiwan where everyone is, pushing about and it's bustling, and I think it's very tiring, like a little bit for me mentally.
That's interesting. So it's difficult to get outside of that lockdown mindset almost.
I think so, and if I'm having difficulty, I can only imagine what when others come out of lockdown, what that will feel like. I think people are very excited, like, I'm going to go party and travel again, but on the flip side, I don't think they know it's actually really exhausting.
Getting back to real life.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's also that I was just thrown into a faster pace of life.
I want to ask you specifically about your experience traveling during the pandemic and what it was like flying from Los Angeles to Taiwan. Was it a scary experience? What were the protocols like in different airports that you transited through?
Oh, yes. It was definitely a little terrifying. I think I put the mental load on myself. I was, by the time I left for Taiwan, I was living in Las Vegas with my mom.
Yeah.
So I flew from Vegas to San Francisco being the hub of transport to Taiwan. And that flight from Las Vegas to San Francisco was a packed flight, and I until that day, I've never been in such a small area with so many people.
Yeah.
For the last 7 months, it's like, wow, this is quite a change, and I'm deeply uncomfortable. And no seat was unfilled.
Oh, wow.
No, some airlines, they leave the middle seat open. This airline did not leave. There was mandated mask wearing, but some people were under the nosers, which I completely despise.
Oh, yeah.
More so in the States than here. Here, I think it's a little more okay. So the whole time I was thinking, okay, this man, 6 rows in front of me, he was under the nose when he was finding his seat, but is he over the nose now?
What were people's attitudes like towards that kind of behavior on the flight? Did anyone sort of stand up and be like, hey, you're not doing this right? Or what about the staff on the airline?
Oh, no one really speaks up. I think no one really speaks up in any public scenario, which just infuriates me even more anytime I leave the house or left the house in Los Angeles or in Nevada, where, I go to grocery store, people are definitely not following it. And in airlines, I think it was definitely more adhered to, but I could sense the atmosphere of the flight was definitely, I'm only wearing a face mask because it's mandated, but I don't actually feel that we're in a pandemic, or I understand the scientific necessity of it. It just felt more like it was just a part of the outfit and not, we're in a pandemic and therefore I wear this.
Did you feel like attitudes were different once you reached Taiwan?
Oh, yes. I think my flight to Taiwan, when I got on that flight, even though I was flying, there was not a lot of people on that flight. And, I felt that everyone on the flight would at least be mentally very cautious. And I assume that they've taken the necessary precautions during COVID to not gather and not, hang out with friends with masks off. And, it just felt like a safer environment. And
so when you came back here, did you have a family home to stay at, or did you have to find a quarantine hotel?
I did find a quarantine hotel, and that was definitely not a fun experience for me personally. I found the experience a little daunting as I don't read or write Mandarin, so I was a lot of, converting the websites to English, and I finally managed to. So I have Taiwanese friends who they're also U.S. Taiwanese dual national. So they helped me find a link to
Okay.
something to the list of quarantine hotels, and then for I don't know how I found this, but there was like another Google Excel sheet
Yeah.
of availability, and I was completely confused by this. And from all the research that I did on these websites, it seemed that they were all occupied.
Right.
And I was really stressing out, and I didn't know if it was because the websites are pretty old. So when you click on the room bookings, the system maybe doesn't reflect current availability. So I ended up making my own Google sheet. My partner and I were checking off hotels that we had looked into one by one within the budget that we were looking at. And then I think something finally clicked in me where I thought I'm probably better off calling the hotel as opposed to just looking on their website, because I know that the customer service here is super great. So then when I called, the hotel that I called had availability, but sometime in between booking it and calling it, they were filled, but they referred me to another hotel.
Right. So you do think that information could be more accessible to non-Chinese speakers?
Oh, definitely. Yes, I think there's a lot of ways to make it easier since, I already have a bit of support, Mandarin-wise, where I could call them and speak to them in Chinese.
Yeah.
But I can imagine if you don't know the language at all, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
Okay. What was your experience like staying in a quarantine hotel itself?
It was actually very pleasant. I know people have their have their concerns about it, where they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to need to be here for 2 weeks." But I was looking forward to it. I thought finally I can read a book, have all this sense of responsibilities out the window. So I brought a book. I brought a couple actually. Brought my art supplies.
Yeah.
Was able to draw and finished a book and caught up with people over FaceTime, and I really had a blast.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Did the hotel bring meals to you?
Yes, they delivered food to me 3 times a day, and this is better service than I could have imagined, where they just leave the food at your door, they ring the bell, you come get it. It's very no contact.
Yeah.
And the food is biendang, but I think it rotated at a sufficient level, so I was never that bored. It did feel a little unhealthy after a while. But,
Okay.
I mean, I thought, this is quarantine. I can't expect for this to be a detox right now anyway.
So now that you are free out of quarantine and living in Taiwan, how are you finding things here?
I think I'm in utopia, I don't think I could imagine it to be this soothing for me mentally, because like in the States, even when I walk out the door, I feel like there's always a chance I will get COVID. Like,
Right.
What if I die today and put on a ventilator? But
Yeah.
in Taiwan, I don't walk out with that fear, and it's been so much better for me.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me today. Have a nice day and take care.
You as well. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Taiwan Talk. I'll see you next time.